Sit back and relax while I listen to Train Kickers podcast. I'm Dave, and along with my co-hosts Dan and Steve, we're going to take you all around the world of miniature wargaming. So this episode, we are going to go over the Rites of War for the Dark Angels. Now, normally, if you've watched any of other Rites of War, usually they're very short, so I usually don't put any prefacing. With how long this one's going to be, it clocks in reasonably close to about an hour and a half. Because of how many Rites of War they have, I thought I would do a little bit of introduction. The other thing I want to do, though, is I do want to apologize for the audio quality on my end. So I record with a microphone, but I also have a headset so I can hear the other guys. My headset has a microphone in it, but I have it turned off. I never use it. It's defaulted to go to my main microphone. Apparently, when we started, though, my microphone was unplugged, which means it defaulted to my headset instead. Once I realized this and fixed it, unfortunately, it turns out it didn't actually swap over like I told it to. So it did show me on the recording that it had changed it, but in the actuality, it didn't do anything. So it's not terrible, but unfortunately, if this was one of the shorter ones, we might re-record it. But for how long this one was, I thought it was better to put it out. The audio quality isn't bad, but it's a little bit less than we've had lately, and I do want to apologize for that. Well, without any further ado, now on to the show.
All right, and we're here tonight to keep on our catch-up of the Rites of War for various legions. In particular, tonight we are going to tackle the cavalcade that is the Dark Angels. They have more than anyone else. Not surprising for what they have. So, just as we're going to do with the other ones, we're going to do a brief recap of the Legion in case either one, you haven't watched our video about them, or if it's been a little bit, especially for this one, it's been a little bit since that main video came out. And then we're going to go through all the Rites of War. Just as we've done before, we're always going to start with the restrictions, so that way we know what the requirements or is keeping you down before we talk about the more exciting parts. All right, so for a very brief recap of the Dark Angels, this is the chapter that's essentially made up, or Legion, I should say, that's made up of a lot of individual pieces. So unlike every other Legion that has a trait that fits everywhere, their trait is essentially choose from 6 options. So every one of your units gets to decide which of these 6 that they have attached to them. And different ones give them different abilities. Say if you're Deathwing, you get +1 to hit when you have a sword-looking weapon. Firewing, you get +1 to wound if you're targeting a unit that has an independent character. Ravenwing makes you move faster. Ironwing, you're better against vehicles and all of that. You can easily look it up or go through it. As it's appropriate for different Rites of War, we'll discuss them in a bit more detail. Their advanced reaction is one of the more ho-hum advanced reactions, I feel at least, as someone who plays the Legion. It's during the assault phase when an opponent is going to charge you. You make a leadership test. If you make it, you become fearless in fear 2. If you fail it, you're stubborn with fear 1. Not that it's not useful, but not all great and wonderful. They had the most special units. They essentially always have the most of everything. So any special units that come up or are talked about in these Rites of War, we'll do a brief recap when we get to those. So, that gives us the first one. Anyone in particular want to take the... So, one other thing I'll say very quickly about their Rites of War. Their Rites of War greatly mimic the base Rites of War, except for certain small changes. So, we're going to reference back to what the other Rite of War was a little bit to kind of see what's different about them. So does anyone want to take the essentially armored spearhead version?
I was going to say, I'll take the steel fist. Okay. So restriction-wise, we're looking at all units made up entirely of models with an infantry unit type and a detachment. Using this Rite of War must start the battle embarked on a transport subtype if, and obviously has to have the sufficient transport to carry them. This is not a flyer. This can't be a flyer. If the unit selected as troop choices, Legion Predator Squadrons, Legion Kratos Squadrons, and a detachment must have the Iron Wing unit subtype. So any Kratos or Predators must be Iron Wing. No units from the detachment can be assigned Deep Strike Assault, Flanking Assault, or Subterranean Assault. The Army's Warlord must be Iron Wing or be Lionel Johnson.
That's a very common thing in a lot of these Rites of Wars is that the main unit it discusses have to have a particular wing, and your leader has to have the same exact wing unless they're the lion, because he can be anything he wants to be. But that's a very common requirement for all of these.
Yeah.
A brief recap for Iron Wing: essentially, if you are going against a vehicle unit, you get to reroll once to hit, and if you are a vehicle yourself, you snapshoot on Bliss skill 2.
Not bad. So the effects, very, very similar to Iron Wing. Your predators now become troops in this Rite of War. Kratos squadrons also get selected as elites instead of heavy support, which is very nice. And I believe Kratos squadrons come in packs of 2.
You can take in up to packs of 2, yes.
That's what I thought. So they can be packed in elites. And all units in this detachment using this Rite of War that are infantry unit types. So all units in the detachment using this Rite of War made up entirely of models of the infantry unit type, the Iron Wing unit subtype, and with 10 or fewer models may take a Legion, Raider, Proteus carrier as the dedicated transport, or if it includes more than 10, a Spartan. So, I mean, it's almost a very simple Rite of War. It's take tanks, essentially. I'm trying to compare it to the Armored Spearhead, which is what essentially it's. So the Armored Spearhead still takes Predators. It does not take Kratoses as elites.
No, it takes
Sicarans. Mm-hmm. So very interesting. So this trades out the lighter Sicaran for the much heavier Kratos in the elite slot. However, you kind of lose the Master of Armor Warlord from the Armored Spearhead, which I think just gives you what, +1 ballistic skill and 5 up invulnerable.
Well, it lets your HQ be a vehicle.
Yes,
that's the big thing.
But doesn't it give you a 5 up invul on the vehicle?
It does. So it gives you a bonus ballistic skill.
Okay. So you do lose some durability from not taking Armored Spearhead, but you gain essentially the Kratos. And I believe you get the tanks as well, the Land Raiders as well. So I'm looking over the Armored Spearhead.
But it's different. So in Armored Spearhead, anyone could have a Rhino, could have a Land Raider instead. What happens here is all infantry get to take Land Raiders, which is different. Because some units, like Legion, I think Legion Scout Squads, as an example, can't take Rhinos. I know there's a couple squads out there that can't take Rhinos. And this unlocks Land Raiders for them, or if it's a big unit, Spartans. So this is a heavier version of Armored Spearhead, where you get bigger.
And keep in mind for this, they can do that if they're Iron Wing, because you don't have to take the rest of your infantry as Iron Wing. You know, your leaders have to be Iron Wing. Certain compulsory choices have to be, but other stuff doesn't. But if you take them as Iron Wing as well, then they can hop in one type of Land Raider or another.
Yep. Also note that in Armored Spearhead, you could use flyers to transport units, not so with Steel Fist.
No, that's all on the ground.
Yep. Still a cool Rite of War. Very simple, much heavier. And if you like using Kratoses and Land Raiders, then...
And Spartans.
Exactly. Steel Fist is just exactly for you. There doesn't really seem to be a downside. I mean, the downside is what? You have to start a transport. Okay, whoop-de-doo.
Well, that means you have to have enough of them. This is the same sort of idea in Armored Spearhead. You have to be able to have them or take enough of them. Because, my squads that don't normally get transports have a way to get it, but the transports they're getting are more expensive. So
true.
You still need to actually put them in something.
But, like I said, the limitation is not like, oh, you can't have... it's more of they have to be embarked. And you have to take Iron Wing. Okay, it's not bad.
Iron Wing is a niche one though. That's the downside of it. Iron Wing is very niche.
Yes, it is. Because if you're not playing against vehicles, then
that's what a lot of the Rites of War do. A lot of the Rites of War can be good, but they usually tend to be much more niche or restrictive, or as we'll see in a moment when I talk about the next one. They have a downside that could be actually rather large, depending on what you're going against. So I guess you would take Armored Spearhead. One, I mean, obviously, if you want to be able to fit Sicarans into a different spot instead of Kratos, sure. Since you have a little bit different of the transport types, if one fits better than the other, do that. And the big thing with Armored Spearhead is if you want to be... That's really your way to lead without, or to have an army really without infantry or very, very little, because even your warlord could be a vehicle. Where in the Steel Fist, that is not the case. So it's less vehicles, but probably more heavy armor, if you want to think of it that way. Any other thoughts on the Steel Fist?
No, it's very straightforward, and I like that it's heavier because I do love my chunky tanks.
Yeah.
I do love chunky in general, so I do like the Steel Fist a lot.
And at current time of recording, we have Predators and all of that coming out this week coming up. So could actually, I don't run a lot of these because I just don't own the models, but now if I can own some of the models, maybe I start actually running some of these.
For those listening, tips and tricks on how to beat Mechanicum, just conversion beamers. If you couldn't blind, and
do you realize how few options are for conversion beamers in most armies?
I know, and Predator conversion beamers are pretty cheap actually, and they still do work. I know I was shitting on conversion beamers before because I was like, who fucking needs a strength 8 small blast? Who cares? And then I realized that strength 8 also denies, feel no pain.
Is that one of the weapons coming on the current Predator kit?
Yeah, I said, well, don't tell me.
It doesn't have all the. It doesn't have all the top guns.
It's only got half.
Yeah.
Oh, you shitting me? Are they gonna do one of those things where it's like
they're gonna do a separate
box 1, box 2 upgrade sprue?
Yeah.
So just to recap that super fast, you're getting in this kit. You're getting the autocannon, the Volkite, the las cannon, and the grav cannon.
Yeah.
Not the conversion beamer.
All right.
Contemptors still have it though.
Okay.
Yes.
I was hoping because I like the conversion beamer on a tank because it's a depends on, it's either less or more durable than a Contemptor, depending on what you're playing. But it's like a cheap way to get a small blast strength 8. It's AP4, but it's good like if you bunch it, and it's blind, which is not something you play for, but it's good against Marines, and it's just downright dirty against Mechanicum. So this is really cool, but it doesn't come with it anyway. So thanks, G-Dubs.
Well, that's all right.
Thanks.
All right, I'm going to the next one because this is. Well, I have these guys sitting about a foot from me. If I have time to paint this week, they're probably the next thing on the painting table. The last few weeks have just been a bit crazy, but dope is to paint these guys. So this is for the Eskaton Imperative. Again, we'll start with the limitations. We're going to see for this, or for the two that I plan to talk about. Some of the other ones do as well, but these have some pretty big downsides. So limitations. If the primary detachment of an army is using this Rite of War, your warlord has to be Dreadwing or Lionel Johnson. Makes sense. So the idea behind this one, the Eskaton, or Dreadwing and all, these are the ones that essentially when the world needs to be cleansed, they're the ones who do this. Remember, one of the characters was called Eskaton and all of that. So this is more of to, I guess, flatten the world down. You want to think about it that way. So everything wants to be Dreadwing for your leader, at least. All the units selected as troop choices, Destroyer Assault Squads, and Legion Mortalis Destroyer Squads in this detachment using this Rite of War must have the Dreadwing. So we're going to see you can take, as a lot of these, different units as troops. If you take any of your Destroyer Assault Squads or Mortalis Destroyer Squads in the troop slot, then they have to be Dreadwing as well. Cannot take fortifications, sure. Here's the big one, though. If at the end of the battle, there are enemy units in the opposing player's deployment zone that are not pinned or falling back, the opposing player gains D3 victory. That is very common in these Rites of War, that if I don't do enough to you, you get free victory points. So if you still have models there that are not pinned or falling back, you're going to get D3. Now, for some of these game modes, that's not too big of an issue, but for other ones, it is absolutely huge. It really kind of depends on which ones you're looking at. So just something there to keep in mind. All right, so for what you get out of it. So Legion Destroyer Assault Squads, Legion Mortalis Destroyer Squads, and Dreadwing Interemptor Squads may be taken as troop choices in the detachment using this Rite of War. To briefly discuss again what the Interemptors are. The Interemptors are the ones that allow you, essentially, they're 125 points for 5 if memory serves. Let me just get to their page real fast. Yeah, 125 points for 5. The big thing is these guys have a lesser strength plasma flamer on them. So they have a strength 6 AP4 plasma, they essentially call it burner. So it's a template weapon that's breaching on a 4-up. They, of course, also have their rad grenades. They have bitter duty. They have all of that because they're similar to Destroyer Mortalis style squads, but they have a plasma flamer. That's their big thing. All models with the Dreadwing unit subtype and its attachment using this Rite of War automatically pass any dangerous terrain test they're called upon to make without making a roll. So automatically pass all dangerous terrain if you're Dreadwing. And remember, a lot of your units, if you're taking them in troops, have to be Dreadwing, and the Interemptors are automatically Dreadwing. They do not have a choice. For the duration of the battle, all open terrain areas of the battlefield outside of either player's deployment zone count as difficult terrain. Those areas previously defined as difficult terrain remain as difficult, while impassable and dangerous fortifications or buildings are unaffected by this rule. So open areas become difficult. Things that were already difficult stay difficult, which is essentially your terrain features mostly. Before any models are deployed, the controlling player may choose to place up to 2 Eskaton markers. You represent by spare dice, base, anything like that, nothing larger than 25 millimeters. Anywhere that's 6 inches from a battlefield edge or a player's deployment zone. So you put out 2 markers. The areas that are within 6 inches of these markers will be dangerous. So your Dreadwing characters or Dreadwing units don't care about this, but the enemy often does. Not 100%, but often does. And all models that are Dreadwing, using this Rite of War, gain +1 on all to wound rolls made against models in any zone of area terrain or terrain piece that counts as dangerous terrain, including any models forced to count other types of terrain as dangerous, as by another special rule, like the rule that you put out. Just to briefly remind people of what Dreadwing does. Dreadwing, for that particular bonus, any units that are Dreadwing, you reduce the strength by 1 of anyone who's firing a weapon that counts as flame, plasma, volkite, or phosphex at you. And if it is poison, it's 1 worse on the poison to a max of 6 up. This was one of the ones I got into because I really liked what it did. I really like the idea of what it does. I think it's actually very, very cool. The downside is kind of big, though. Giving up victory points is huge. Slowing down your opponent, assuming they care about difficult terrain, and especially assuming they care about dangerous. And if you're making the whole middle of the board difficult, especially if they have anything with jump packs or anything like that, they should hopefully care. This can definitely be very, very devastating. Keep in mind, your Dreadwing units ignore dangerous. They pass their dangerous terrain, but they don't ignore the difficult part, unlike the Death Guard one. So it means you are also slowed down unless you have moved through cover or something else that means that you don't care about it. So it will slow you down as you progress forward as well. But you're much more, I guess, in line for a slow marching advance. The other thing is, because of what you set out, you'd want to be very careful with vehicles. Because if your vehicles are not Dreadwing, they're not going to auto-pass, which means there's a chance that you'll mobilize your vehicles because difficult terrain's dangerous for them automatically. So every time you move outside of your deployment zone until you get to the opponent's deployment zone, you're at a potential large disadvantage. So it's just something to keep in mind there, which could be very rough on you.
All right. I mean, so okay. This is, if I have to ever say that I'm 50-50 on something, this is the Rite of War for that. I love this Rite of War so much, and I hate it so much. And let me explain. Let me go positive first. On the positive side, this affects making the entire No Man's Land difficult terrain affects and hurts so much stuff. You mentioned vehicles, also assault marines using their jetpacks, bikes. Pretty much anything that moves fast, you affect. And on that roll of 1, most bikes I think are they 1 wound or 2 wounds? Now I gotta remember.
Depending on the bike, I think most of them are more than 1.
Okay, but still, that's still a wound.
Now I'm less confident now that I've said it. I said it and I felt good about it.
But while you look that up, it's still a wound.
Outriders are 1, Sky Hunters are 2.
There you go.
Okay. So, oh my God, Sky Hunters. I even forgot. Jesus, the flying jet bikes. So yes, so to me that's a major improvement. You now just slowed down, like you have Blood Angels who we haven't talked about. We have talked about,
Yes, we
but
have.
but Blood Angels who use that fast assault marine army, now they're kind of screwed. But then okay, so that's the positive. But then I look at the negative, where let's say you're playing against a White Scars player, right? Who then takes the Chogorian Brotherhood. And then he all of a sudden has all these invulnerables against difficult terrain, and he ignores difficult terrain and dangerous terrain. He has an invulnerable save against. Okay, that's very specific, right?
Yeah.
So let's go back to the positive. You set out these 25mm bases, right, where you get +1 to wound, which is massive, absolutely massive, because you could just take something from across the field, shoot something near them, and boom, you're +1 to wound. Because it's the basis of the +1 to wound is based off the enemy, not you being in that area. So that's excellent. I love that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Okay, but it's 6 inches, so it's very easy to avoid.
Well, there's 6-inch bubbles.
Your opponents can play around it.
So it's
exactly,
12.
but still.
So essentially, if you think of the middle of the board, let's say you line them up perfectly across the middle. You could put it where your opponent has to go to 12 inches on the board sides, not to go through dangerous terrain. You control the middle 12. Actually, more than the middle 12. Sorry, the middle 24. My apologies. You control the middle 24. They have to go to the 12s on the ends if they don't want to go through danger.
Okay. So maybe less avoidable than I thought. Okay, that's not bad.
Remember, there's 6-inch bubbles, and there's 2 of them. And that
I keep wanting to
other
think
terrain,
like 6 inches in total.
Yeah, the other terrain, would stay difficult. So it's, it's bad everywhere you go, and then there's some pretty big bubbles of dangerous, not counting anything else that's dangerous. Remember, if you're taking interrupters, if you're doing this, you're taking units with phosphex bombs or grenades. You're taking things to put more dangers out there. That is your goal.
And you know what? That being said, I'm going to say then I take away the 50-50. I like this spread of war because there are very few White Scars. But again, that's loyalist versus loyalist, and usually at events you won't face that unless you're playing like local games.
But we'll count local games because you obviously
okay.
can face
So
White
then
Scars.
the very rare chance you play a White Scars player with the Chogorian Brotherhood, this is where it kind of doesn't do well. Yeah. But other than that, this is like, for example, take this against the game I got trounced. Oh, Jesus Christ. But the game against the World Eaters, right? Mm-hmm. Imagine them crossing no man's land, and every single time they roll a 1, they just die. Although I think an Apothecary Philopane can be used. No, I don't think so.
No. Only invulnerables.
Only invulnerables, yeah. So every one you roll on those 20-man quads.
If they walk, the difficulty's not dangerous.
Yes.
They'll be slow as hell, though. That's the the question that I actually have about this Rite of War. That last effect, that last bullet point.
Mm-hmm.
Dreadwing get +1 to wound against models in dangerous terrain.
Yeah, area terrain or piece of terrain that counts as dangerous, including any models forced to count other types of terrain as dangerous by another special rule. Yes.
Yeah, so what happens with the model of the jump pack? They could choose to walk and not take dangerous, or choose to jump and take dangerous.
Well, no, because I think...
So, to me, the way I would read
it's only dangerous if they jump.
Yeah, I would say if you're not jumping, you're not treating it as dangerous, so they do not have to. But if they turned on their jump packs, even if they didn't, I don't know why you would do it, but let's say you turned them on and didn't use them, then yes. Or like jetpacks. If you have a jetpack, you can't choose not to use it, right? Like it's on.
Yeah, the Ursarax, for example.
Yeah, so they are always in dangerous terrain for them, so they would always count it no matter what. But no, in my mind, so like I wouldn't get the +1 to wound. I would always have the +1 to wound versus them. If you have a unit with jump packs, if you didn't turn them on, to me, I wouldn't get the bonus.
Yeah, because they're not dangerous. Yeah, that makes sense.
That's the way I would read it.
Yeah.
That seems fair to me.
Yeah.
It's fair. That's how I would read it.
Yeah. I'm iffy on this one just because of the victory points that you can give up. You need to make sure.
That was the other reason. Okay.
Here's the thing. You need to be able to make sure that you can do enough to your opponent. And remember, you are slower in general yourself going through the middle on your units because we don't have very much that can move through cover or ignore these sorts of things. So I might not be taking damage, but I'm still slow through it, which means assaults are much less important in this Rite of War. You need to make them less important. So you need to either be in, Dreadwing vehicles, which remember, if it's a dedicated transport, has to have the same unit type I don't think we mentioned this, has to have the exact same unit type as the unit that's in it to start the game with, which means I might have to take Dreadwing on units that don't want it or units that can't have it. That's not going to work. I like what it does, but if you can't do the things that you want to your opponent, they can absolutely win the game just off of the final condition there.
Counterpoint, that was one of my negatives. Counterpoint.
Okay.
Usually the stuff that stays in the back are your heavy support and bombardment tanks, right?
Or you keep a small unit back to just gain objective victory points because I know I can. This is
where I say something like the Scorpius comes in, right? Where you would take maybe 1 or 2 Scorpiuses just to lay down indirect strength 8, what is it, Rend 4 up? It's nuts. D3 blasts on anything on the back line. And then your opponent's like, oh shit, I need D3 victory points to win this. I need to keep something else back there by the end of the game, right? So they move back there at the end of the game, but now you've pushed up to the midfield. So let's say you're playing an objective mission, right? Or you're playing a mission that requires you to... Exactly. But what I'm saying is it forces the opponent to react to you, which is not a great feeling. That's not the way I wanted to put that. But it forces the opponent to play your game rather than, oh man, he has forces in the back line. That sucks, I'm going to lose. You take something that attacks the back line. Again, Scorpius is literally the perfect example.
I got a better one.
Oh, okay.
You throw destroyers into a termite assault drill.
Oh, yeah.
They pop out of the drill, throw a Phosphex bomb because the sergeant can take one. So now they've caused dangerous terrain to appear on the table. And oh, wow, look at that. Here's a +1 to wound.
Oh my God, I didn't think about that. Oh, Jesus Christ.
And it solves a mobility issue. You're not scoring, but it gets you units to that backline. And it lets you place more dangerous terrain.
Cheaper than the Scorpius?
Almost certainly not. The drill itself is 80 points.
Oh, okay. No, well,
and the squad's like 110.
Oh, okay, there it is. I was going to say, the Scorpius is kind of expensive, and then you said the squad. That's not a bad idea, though. That's actually not taking like maybe 2 squads and 2 drills, putting them in the back line, throwing the Phosphex bomb, and you kind of just wreck their back line. They have to deal with you, or they don't get the D3 victory points. I like that a lot, actually.
You could also drop pod in a Leviathan Dreadnought and use its Phosphex dischargers. And that will definitely draw attention.
Like, does the D3 victory points suck? Sure. But it's not an auto lose for me. Especially in this game because, hold on. So you have one mission that's progressive scoring. You have another mission that's end of the scoring with objectives. You have another mission that's kill points on specific units. That's 3 out of the 6 that I can remember.
All right, and sorry for that brief change. I realized my microphone was unplugged, so I was going through my headset instead. So if the audio wasn't quite as good, that's all right. If needed, I might chop that out and kind of add in my main point again. All right. So when it comes to Eskaton Imperative, it sounds like so there's plans around it. The limitation of giving up points kind of bothers me a bit. I do see there's options around it, but when I also look at that, some of the units I just don't have. So I see there is ways to help guarantee I don't give that up. But honestly, until some of it comes out in plastic, I'm probably not going to do it as much because I've already dealt with more resin than I ever want to in my life. But I do hear your guys' points, and I do have 15 interrupters. So
I just realized Sniper Squad would be a great pick because it could pin units.
Yes, because
there's that one console, that sniper console, where he's like pinning with like a -2 penalty, I think, and rending 2 up, so he's gonna get that wound on you.
Yeah, that could actually be very useful.
That would be a solid pick.
All right. I will say this now, and this is true for any of these, and I'll try to post it in the notes underneath it. If anyone's used any of these, of course, tell us how it went, especially for these ones that, could honestly go either way. And you could absolutely have a game where it goes great and you took this. You have another game where, you played the wrong army, they didn't care, or they were able to hide well enough because you maybe just don't own the right types of units. I don't want to look at it as, to run this, here's the list you need to do, because that's not fun either. But if you have, just let us know. All right. Steve, do you want to take the Storm of War?
Absolutely.
Go for it.
So the Storm of War is the Rite of War for people who go, Space Marines are kind of cool, but I also really like playing Imperial Guard. So what if I just play my Space Marines as if they were an Imperial Guard infantry platoon? Because you just love painting models so much. You decide you need to have at least 300 on the board at any given
That's when
time.
my Conquest Army's unpainted.
So the Storm of War, Rite of War. I think it's thematically amazing. I don't know if anyone has ever actually run this, but limitations: all Legion tactical squads, despoiler squads, and assault squads must be Stormwing. Okay, it's a decent pick for tactical squads. The other two not so much, but it's a reroll ones to hit with all bolters, bolt pistols, and combi bolters.
+1 to hit.
No, yeah, +1 to hit. +1 to hit. My apologies. +1 to hit with those weapons. So hitting on 2s on a bolter, not bad. Hitting on 2s with the bolt pistol,
not nearly as good.
It's not bad, but it's not nearly as good. Exactly.
Compared to other things you could have, because remember, some of your squads might be guys with chain swords, and I'd rather them get +1 to hit on a chain sword instead.
Same. But the +1 to hit on those weapons is cool, I guess. All compulsory troops must take the maximum number of models possible for that unit. So you better be ready to run some big squads. Because if I remember correctly, all the compulsory troops options go to 20.
I'll check while I talk about other things, but I believe that's
tactical, assault, breacher. Yep. Those are all 20, and compulsory. Recon, scout, and support all go to only 10, but they're support.
Yeah, because the despoilers are 20 as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's you need 40 bodies minimum.
Yeah. Yup. No tactical squad or despoiler squad may take a dedicated transport. So for those 20-man units, it's not really going to matter. But for any supplemental 10-man units, it might matter there. It might matter there a lot, actually. No unit from a detachment with the Rite of War may be assigned to Deep Strike Assault, Flanking Assault, or Subterranean Assault. So even if you did giant Assault Marine blobs, they can't take advantage of their Deep Strike. They gotta just run across the board like everyone else, which is kind of a shame. And finally, for limitations, like the others, the Warlord must be Stormwing or be Lionel Johnson. The limitations I don't think are the worst I've seen in the world. It just pushes you towards a very specific playstyle of
you have to want to run exactly what it's going to allow you, which is giant squads of on-foot guys.
Yup. I mean, you could use your heavy slots to take some Spartans, I guess, but
it's not fitting the theme well if you do that.
Yeah, it's not. It's not. But what's the effect? So, Legion tactical squads, despoiler squads, or assault squads selected as part of the detachment and containing at least 20 models may include a Legion Centurion. They don't use up a Force Auric slot, but they still get paid for paint from the points total. They're considered part of the squad, and they cannot leave it, and they cannot select any console upgrades. It can't be the Warlord, it must be Stormwing. So essentially, you add a 21st model that has a Centurion's stat line and war gear options. Next up, all models with character and Stormwing gain Stubborn, including the Centurions because they're Stormwing characters. Tactical squads, despoiler squads, and assault squads may be selected as elites choices. And finally, Legion assault squads may be taken as fast attack choices in this Rite of War. This is a lot different from last edition. It's a lot more straightforward than last edition. It's literally just, cover the table in bodies and hope for the best. I don't know if I love it. As a matter of fact, I think I don't love it.
I agree.
I love the idea. I love the visuals. Just turning your Dark Angels into Starship Troopers, where you just have them all just rushing and hoping for the best. But
you want to know more.
You don't really gain anything except the ability to take more troops units.
Yeah, your gain is your troop slot stuff can potentially not be in troop slot stuff, which means you can take even more troop units, and you can pay for extra Centurions. if you want. I mean, okay. I mean, in this, I guess since you're doing a lot of stuff on foot, that might not be a bad addition. The fact they don't let them take any console upgrades is the part that hurts. I would have even been fine if they only let them do the special Dark Angel one, the Paladin of the Hecatonicica. Because then at least I feel like the guy does more. This guy is essentially, I don't know, he's good at soaking up some wounds, maybe, because he's a 2-up save.
It's just a 2-wound unit leader.
Yeah. I would let him take my saves for a while, so that way I live longer.
And remember, it can't be the Terminator guy because it's a Legion Centurion, not the a Legion Centurion, Cataphractii Centurion, or Tartarus. It's just Centurion.
I will admit this they can do a good amount of work. When you have a 20-man squad that's going to hit on 2s, you could either be in half range to get the extra shot and or not moving an additional shot, for your attack squads. You can put out good damage that way. When you hit on 2s compared to 3s, you actually do start getting attack Marines to start punishing people. But I'm just not personally excited by running all the troop units all over the place. Yes, you do get to do some stuff with the support squads, which is nice because they get to go leading to. Oh no, they don't get to go anywhere. It's the attack squads, the spoilers, and assault squads can be selected as elites. So I guess you could fit in more supports if you want, because you would need to, because you need some special weapons, and these are guys that'll take your special weapons. It kind of feels like you would start with a basis of all these bodies, but then you have to build the rest of your army otherwise around it, which I don't know if this gives you that much extra to do that. Where if you wanted to take some 20-man squads, you could just do that anyway. You don't need this to do it.
I'll put it this way: you could run this army to this almost the exact same effect, simply by running no right of war and giving up the stubborn.
Yeah.
Stubborn's really nice, but I don't think it's going to make this work. I don't think it's enough.
No, and I think it hamstrings you a bit in certain ways, and I'm not huge on that.
As a counterpoint,
go ahead.
As a counterpoint, I absolutely love stubborn. I actually think that stubborn is worth it. From someone who has an entirely stubborn army. I mean, I'll put it this way: sometimes it does suck, but stubborn, I find, sometimes holds someone in place just long enough for you to reposition while your army is dying. But just not a good reason to take this right of war. But just a slight side note, I guess, is the good way to put that.
It's a good thing. No one's going to argue that's not a good thing. The question is it worth all the extras that you do? Or, maybe more importantly, is it worth giving up other rights of war that you could fit this army into? This one has one of the fewest effects / limitations from what you might consider standard army building, other than a couple of your squads are going to be as big as you do. Some people already do that. If you already do that, all you're really missing out on is stubborn and some slot moving around. I'm not sure currently with what I've played. I don't know if I want people filling up my elite choices or maybe the fast attack, because I'm not too concerned about those. My Firewing, whatever their name is, I can't remember the name right now. But those guys, sure. But otherwise, I'm just not filling those slots. But like my elites, no, I have other units that go in there, so I'm not going to want to switch things out. I don't see. Not that it would be bad, but I don't see the big draw to it.
Yeah, it's not shit.
No one's saying these are.
But it's not like it's not like trash, but it's not. I don't know. Listen, it's your thing. It's your thing.
Let's true of anything, yeah.
But compared to the
if
other
this
one,
is what you want to run, go ahead and run.
Compared to other
just
ones,
as a thrills.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to potentially happier things. So since I play this army, I'm talking mainly about the 2 rights of war that I actually play or like. So the next one I'll do is the Unbroken Vow, and that leaves each of the other 2 to fight amongst the last 2 scraps. So the Unbroken Vow, this is some of these model general rights of war. Not all of them do. But this one models Pride of the Legion. So I'm going to go through it first. We'll talk about the distinction Pride of the Legion and why you might consider one over the other. So, limitations. So after deployment has been completed, the controlling player, so the player that's running the Unbroken Vow, must place a single additional objective marker at the center of the battlefield or as close as possible. If you're already doing objectives and there's already one in the middle, you can just use that one. That's what I do usually, rather than try to pop one right next to it. It's just easier to remember. At the end of the battle, if you, the player having this army, does not control the objective, the opposing player gets a victory point. If your opponent actually controls that middle special objective you put down, they get D3 instead. So this is another one where if you aren't doing enough things, they're automatically going to be scoring points. I had this cause a tie in a game because I had no scoring units left, so I automatically couldn't have it myself. All Legion Tartarus Terminator squads, Cataphractii Terminator squads, and veteran squads must have Deathwing. We said it before, but Deathwing is +1 to hit in close combat with weapons that look like swords. So it even says if you model something as a sword, so it would count. And as many of the others, if it's a primary detachment using it, your warlord has to be Deathwing or has to be Lion. So what you get? Your vet squads, your Tartarus Terminator squads, your Cataphractii Terminator squads can be troops. They do not gain line. In Pride of the Legion, the compulsory units gain line. That is not true here. They do not gain line. Models that have the independent character special rule and the Deathwing special rule from the detachment using this rite of war gain an extra attack within 12 inches of any objective. You know for a fact you're going to place, there's always going to be at least one objective in the game because you are placing one yourself. So you do know essentially there's a 12-inch bubble in the middle of the board where all your Deathwing independent characters will have an extra attack. If you happen to play missions that have objectives, which some of the book ones do, and let's face it, when GW ran a game stay, all their missions were like progressive scoring, not necessarily all objective style, but more in that sort of vein, so it would be much more common. Last thing you get is that your vet squads, your Tartarus Terminator squad, and your Legion Cataphractii Terminator squad gain Heart of the, using the rite of war, gain Heart of the Legion. A nice to have, but again, it requires objectives for that to work. So if we compare this to Pride of the Legion, to make base comparisons, then we'll talk more about what exactly it does. So Pride of the Legion lets your guys be troops choices. It lets the compulsory one be line. And it also would allow models that are just in Cataphractii armor, Tartarus armor, so units that are filling those armors, to be taken as a troops choice. So this has more restrictions in that case of what it gives you. It lets you make the people troops, the base ones, without making any line and without any of the other special units. Like you cannot make your Inner Circle Knights troops in this, but Pride of the Legion would. You have less restrictions, I would say, overall, your limitations, because the limitations on Pride of the Legion are a little bit harsher in certain ways. The biggest ones there are Pride of the Legion means you can only have one fast attack, one heavy. This has no restriction like that. So there's a few others, but those are sort of the big ones. So I like this one in certain scenarios. I've played it several times, and I do like it in general, and I do enjoy what it does. There is some very glaring, huge problems with it, though. And one of the biggest problems is the missions that GW put together. If I can know that there's a few objectives on the board, the one in the middle is nice. But if I could know there's at least a couple objectives on the board, then I never have a problem taking this. Because one, I can take as much fast or, more importantly, heavy support choices as I want, which I like. Because I personally I own a bunch of those, and I like taking them. They're a good complement to the rest of the things you have. Getting the extra attack on your independent characters, they do have to be Deathwing, but that's fine. You have Tyrannic Greatswords, which count as a sword, which means, if you're talking about your Praetor model, okay, if he's not going against another Praetor, if he's going against anyone who's a little bit worse, you're hitting on 2s, because you'd be hitting on 3s with a +1s, you're hitting on 2s, most likely wounding on 2s as well, and 5-ups are Murder Strike. So getting an extra attack on that guy when you charge absolutely makes a difference. I think I mentioned it before, but I used this on a Librarian one time to be able to kill a Contemptor. I've used it to kill a variety of other things. So if you can get the bonuses, they're nice. Heart of the Legion, cool. That works really well as well. The problem is getting those bonuses, because if you're playing a mission that doesn't have a lot of objectives or only has the one you put in, you're at a disadvantage. You're only going to get your bonus if you get near there. Now, if you're just happy to kind of fill up your slots instead, your troop units with these other units and allow yourself more fast or more heavy can do well for you. The other thing is that victory point you're going to give up. Since they don't count as a line, they can't score you the objective. So you're still going to need something scoring, tax squads, breachers, whatever it may be. You still need those. And you need them in particular to be taking the middle objective. We know in objective games, if you're talking about, say, tax squads or something, they might be holding your back ones. Maybe your assault squads are further up. But even then, I know sooner or later, and your opponent knows, you need to get to the middle. And importantly, if they get there instead, A3 can absolutely lose you the game. So the game I played, if he would have had units left to take the middle, it's a loss. It's only because he didn't have them that I was even able to tie the game. So I think in larger games, this is more impactful because you can fill out slots that Pride of the Legion restricts you from. I think if you are playing the game in much more the format that I believe it should be played, and that's with objectives and progressive scoring and those sort of things, then I think goes very well. But like I said, my vision could be a little bit clouded because the missions I played it in, there was objectives. If I had one of the ones with no objectives, I'm not getting much from it. So I kind of lucked out that I had it, or at least the one in the middle. That's where I was going to try to meet the other army anyway. And the other sort of downside to this, I'll put it that way, depending on how you run your units. As we said, one of those limitations was that your Tartarus Terminator squads, Legion Cataphractii Terminator squads, and Legion Veteran squads have to be Deathwing. Deathwing only helps if you have a sword. If your model or a unit isn't carrying swords, it does you no good. I know, at least for me, my Terminators, yeah, a few of them have swords because they were in the box, and I got some other stuff printed. But usually my Cataphractii Terminators are rocking heavier weapons. I want them to have, a lot of them have either chain fists, thunderhammers, something to get through what I want, which means I'm getting no bonus at all from them being Deathwing. There's other options that could give them a bonus. Actually, Cataphractii are in a weird spot. A lot of the bonuses they could have aren't necessarily great for them. But that's a bonus that doesn't help almost anyone in that squad other than like two guys. My veterans might help a guy or two. So I do like this one. I do think it does a lot of good, but if you choose Pride of the Legion instead of this, I think that's a very smart call unless you want to run more of your heavy / fast, or if you run a lot of swords or independent characters who have swords. I don't know if either of you guys have any thoughts.
I mean, you can guarantee at least one objective will be on the table with Stride of War.
Yes.
If you really wanted to use Heart of the Legion. I mean, I think you covered it pretty well. It's very specific in the units that gain benefits for it. I think that you could combo some stuff to end up with very resilient units holding the center board. Yeah. Take a Cataphractii squad, attach a Primus Medicae and a Legion Herald, and now you have a big old unit with a 2-up armor save, 4-up invul, 4-up feel no pain, but that's also taking up a lot of your points and all your HQ slots, because you're also probably throwing your Praetor in there as well.
Yeah, if you have someone with a Legion standard, you could obviously score with a different unit, but, which honestly, for this, I think you almost have to. Someone has to have a standard. You have to find a way to put in, because the biggest issue I found so far with running this is I don't have enough scoring units. And unlike other missions, where it doesn't matter so much if you're scoring because there's not a lot of objectives normally. There's like 2 missions I care about, objectives, everything else okay. My two like compulsory troops units will be fine. In this, I know there's an objective in the middle that I have to take, and there could be others. I want at least a little more that scores, which means I probably want a Legion standard somewhere, so a good, strong unit can be the one trying to push to the middle.
So, I mean, you're probably already going to guess where I stand
right
on
down
this
the middle of the road.
No. Come on. I'm sorry. What armies do I play?
None of the real ones.
No, I love big. No, shut up. I love big, thick armies. This is basically me being. I love Cenobium with an undying passion. So this allows me to take Cenobium the way I want it. Well, no. So let me rephrase. This lets me take Cenobium, Tartaros, Cataphractii as troops, Cenobium as elites. No, Tartaros, Cataphracti as troops, Cenobium as elites.
Pride of the Legion would let you take them as troops if you wanted. Yes.
Wait, Cenobium?
Pride of the Legion lets you take any units that are in pure Cataphracti armor or Tartaros armor instead, as that were elite choices, instead as troops choices, but they can't be the compulsory and they can't gain the line. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, this one actually gives you less of that.
I still like it.
The excitement died.
No, I still like it. No, because I could still take a Cenobium big block squad with a banner in there to give them line, and then take a couple of troops, take the Cenobium squad, put in the center, hold that objective with line.
But here's my question: why? So, what makes you do it here instead of Pride of the Legion? Or Pride of the Legion, you could make them a troop, so you could fill their elites in.
Yeah, nothing.
Okay.
That's the problem. I mean, you get +1 attack. That's nice with independent characters. I mean,
listen, I think there's definitely arguments to be made here, but your argument that you're making is made better in Pride of the Legion. Unless your goal is no restrictions on heavies, no restrictions on fast, and some of the other ones, like the Pride of the Legion also has, you can't take any allies. This allows you to take allies. So if you are someone who wants to take allies, you're allowed to do it here. This one doesn't have to be your primary detachment. That one I'm pretty sure. Does that one have to be primary? Yes. That one has to be primary. This one technically could be the allied detachment. So there's less restrictions overall, but there's less gains unless you got objectives down and you got a bunch of guys with swords. If you don't have that, you're not gaining much. All in all, though, I still like it. I still play it a bunch. I still enjoy it. And those extra attacks have absolutely won me games. But it's better in bigger points games. If it's a smaller point game, you're just not going to have enough stuff. In big games, when you have more that scores, or you're able to throw standards in one spot or another because of what you can do, then I think it will perform a lot better. All right. So there's 2 left. There's 2 of you. Who wants what?
I will take Seeker's Arrow because I feel like Seeker's Arrow is probably going to be like the cavalry one or the bike one. I haven't read it yet, but I'm assuming from the name. It is? Okay. I'll take that one because I can compare it to the Chokorian and the white one and the white
compare
scar.
Compare it mostly to the base one because they're not white scars. So that's.
Oh, there is a base one. I was trying to find what's the name of the base one. I was trying to find that.
They make me go through and check.
Called Sky Hunter.
Well, if they have one that's
Sky
similar, they don't always. If they have one similar, that's what you want to
get is Sky Hunter.
Yeah, I would say the closest to Sky Hunter, but Sky Hunter specifically is jet bike, so I wanted to ignore it. But I'll compare it to Sky Hunter
because you figure that's the options you.
Well, that's the option Dark Angels have.
They're not white scars.
Exactly.
So that's have a white scar thing to talk about. So it's not a great
very close. But yeah.
All
right, so. But I'll still do Sky. I'll talk about Sky Hunters. So, first let's talk about the Dark Angel one first. So, Seeker's Arrow limitations: the detachment using this Rite of War may not include a model with the vehicle unit subtype that does not also have fast skimmer or flyer unit subtypes. So, if you're taking this Rite of War, you're going fast. You're going zoom. A detachment using this Rite of War may only include a single heavy support choice. All units selected as troops and fast attack choices in an attachment using this Rite of War must have the Raven Wing unit subtype, which, Dave, if you can remind us what Raven Wing is.
Have a second, because I never use it. It's for Raven Wing, if you have that.
Raven Wing is extra speed.
Yeah, it's +1 to distance when you run. If you're cavalry, you can also reroll failed shrouded. And if you're vehicle, you get +2 to your movement characteristic when cruising.
Ooh, super fast. And of course, you have to be Raven Wing unit subtype or Lionel Johnson, the Warlord.
And your fast attack
now,
have to be
just
Raven.
Really, the Army's Warlord has to be Raven
Wing.
Wing.
All units selected as troops and fast attack have to be Raven Wing. It's the 3rd bullet point.
Oh, wow, I skipped over that completely. Jesus.
That is the big restriction here.
Whoa, okay, yeah, wow, I completely sorry. All troops and fast attack have to be Raven Wing. I don't know why I wasn't seeing it. It was like right there in front of me, and I'm like, oh, you already read it. No. As a quick side note, because I am comparing this now to Sky Hunter, it has the same restriction for flyer, faster skimmer. It has not a similar restriction. Sky Hunter has everything has to be embarked on a flyer transport subtype. You can't use dreadnoughts in Sky Hunter, which I think you can't use dreadnoughts here anyway.
You could because it says.
Oh, you could. Okay, so that's a nice
they're
difference.
Not vehicles.
vehicles. So that's a nice difference. And fortifications. You could use fortifications here. Yeah. That's such a weird. All right, whatever. So what are the benefits? Jesus Christ. The benefits are that Legion Skyhunter squadrons and Legion Outrider squadrons are maybe selected as troops. They're not line, it looks like.
No,
they are not.
Don't gain line from their Rites of War.
Okay, that's. To be fair, Skyhunter doesn't do that either. Oh no, it does. Sorry, Legion Skyhunters selected as troops get in line. Independent characters modeled in Detachment Army with this Rite of War have the Cavalry unit subtype, Ravenwing unit subtype, and gain the Rampage 2 special rule. Oh, that's nice. What's the bulky size of a Outrider bike and or Skyhunter?
1.
It's only 1? Really?
They count as 1 model.
No, stop that. Now oh my god, don't make me check. Is it really a bike is only 1 and so is a Skyhunter? It's not bulky 2?
Skyhunter is not listed as bulky.
Oh shit! So essentially that for those who don't know what Rampage is, if you're outnumbered, you get the additional number of attacks that's in the bullets, and bulky does count as a numbering. You know what I mean? So if you have bulky 3 and there are 5 bulky 3 people in the squad, you count as 15 models. Yeah. So interesting. Okay, so you pretty much always get 2 attacks. And all units made up entirely of models with this cavalry. All units made up entirely of models with the cavalry or infantry unit types, and the Ravenwing unit subtype gain the outflank special rule, so you can outflank. Okay. Okay.
So I'll say it right now before we get into anything else. Outflank is best if you can fly.
Yes.
Otherwise, you're going to struggle.
Or go
a lot.
I mean, they still move what? I mean, these things move fast.
The problem is you could physically block it with a 10-man squad or marine, so you can't get on the board. Unless you could fly over them.
I was going to say, even with... So, okay. Sky Hunters, you don't take Outriders as troops, but all your Sky Hunters gain line. Is the big difference here. But this one takes Dreadnoughts. But again, you run into the same problem as line.
Yeah, all the Dark Angels ones have a problem of line. If you're concerned about scoring, which, like I said, depends on the mission or the structure you're playing, and you might care a little bit more or less. But if you care about scoring, all of their ones still require you to fill a base army, and then you sprinkle all the rest of the stuff around. I think the biggest detriment to this, in my mind, is that limitation that all units selected as troops and fast attack must be Ravenwing. I don't want my attack Marines to be Ravenwing. Maybe some of my other ones, or because like even assault squads, like when you do a jump pack, you can't modify that move, can you? We've talked about it before, right? No, I don't think the plus one doesn't matter because you set your move to 12. So no, adding to it doesn't help you either. I don't know what troop unit wants to go 1 inch faster. They're not going to be running, or they mostly are not going to be running. Maybe once in the entire game. I'd rather have a +1 to hit with things. I'd rather get either +1 on my bolters, or +1 on my chainswords, or honestly just about anything else.
I feel like this needed something else. Like, okay, so you know how every other Rite of War has had some sort of like objective thing, right? I feel like this needed one of those bullet points where, like, I don't know, set an objective and in the opponent's deployment zone. If you don't hold it,
you think it needs more minuses?
It needed something. Well, no, it needed something to play to the speed.
Not more minuses.
The objective.
You'll notice all their objective stuff is minuses. I don't get things for keeping it. I lose stuff for not.
Oh, you don't get stuff for
all of their objective shenanigans. Essentially, all of their things that are points based give your opponent points when something is not met. Eskaton, I haven't hurt you bad enough, you get points. You know, Unbroken Vow, I'm not here, you're getting points. We're going to see when we talk about Serpent's Bane, there is another piece like that that's points based.
Okay.
In general, none of theirs.
I'm sorry. I gotta say, I don't like this, and I don't like it for 2 reasons. Because I know we haven't talked about it yet, and we haven't released it. I know what the White Scars one is, and honestly, this is basically a poor man. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong in the YouTube comments, by all means. But I compare this to the White Scars one that I know, the Chokarian Brotherhood, And again, pardon me for saying, it's just like a shittier version of the Jagaran Brotherhood. It's essentially what it is. It's a shittier version of it. And it's almost kind of a shittier version of the one in the rulebook.
It absolutely
in my opinion.
is a worse version than the one out of a different Legion. Although I will be an advocate for comparing Legion to Legion for certain things isn't always exactly a fair assessment, because that Brotherhood leans very heavy into the things that White Scars do. The problem that Dark Angels have is that their army is not designed to lean into a thing. There's a variety of things, and I can kind of lean how I want. But that also means that none of them are necessarily going to sing to you unless you build for it. You know, Seeker's Arrow, you have to build for it. I'm not saying that you would, but if you built for it, at least you would feel like maybe it's a good choice for you.
Like, I'll put it this way. I know you've always said kind of like line doesn't really, not line doesn't matter, but it's not as important as people say.
It's absolutely not as important as people say.
But then but my counterpoint is, all right, this doesn't offer line at all. Why would you not rather just take Seeker's Arrow, which just gives you line anyway?
You mean Skyhunter Falcons?
You know what I mean? Oh, sorry, Skyhunter Falcons,
The biggest thing would be some of the limitations or some of the other gains. If you really want to have that Rampage 2 on certain things, if you really want to get Outflank. Because you can just give Outflank to units that don't naturally have it, and that could be useful.
Hold on a second. Wait a minute. Actually, hold on. Now I got to look at something. I actually think they have Outflank as a rule.
There's got to be something that doesn't, because otherwise, why would they do it?
Unit profiles. Give me 1 second. Outriders get Scout, doesn't that confer Outflank?
No, I don't think so. No, Infiltrate. No, I don't remember anymore. Look it up.
Or is it Infiltrate? Am I confusing it?
Scout gives you Outflank, not Infiltrate.
Yeah, so they have Infiltrate. Wait, hold on. Yeah, they have Outflank.
What about the other unit? What about the other unit?
Am I stupid? Outriders, Skyhunters both have Scout.
So is Outflank a rule that confers automatically?
Okay, so it's gonna help your land speeders.
Land speeders have Scout.
Do they?
Yeah. They have Outflank as well. They have Scout and they have Outflank.
But here's the question. Is that a rule that confers to a unit? So in other words, my Praetor, if he's in there on a bike, what does that rule confer to him?
Well, if he's on a bike, he gets Scout.
Just being a bike gives you Scout.
Right?
No.
No? Okay.
That's
so then does the rule confer? I can't answer that. I don't know. I guess that would be under special rules. Like, I'll look at special rules. I'll look at Scout real quick, but I don't think...
I'm trying to compare to Skyhunter, and the only thing that is good for Seeker is you could take a Dreadnought.
Yeah.
Hold on. No, yeah. Look, and so Dave, I just read the first line on here. After both sides are deployed, including infiltrators, this is for Scout, by the way. But before the first player begins their first turn, a unit containing at least one model with this special rule can choose to redeploy.
Right.
And then I was going to skip. If a unit both has the Infiltrate and Scout special rules, the unit can deploy as the Infiltrate special rule and then deploy as per Scout special rule. Having Scout also confers the Outflank special rule to units of Scout that are kept as reserves.
Right, but does Infiltrate confer? Because Scout may give you Infiltrate, but that doesn't mean that attached models gain Infiltrate.
Keep in mind, when they say the word unit, a page in the book is a unit.
I mean, not Infiltrate, Outflank.
But what does Outflank do differently than...
Well, Outflank might not confer, like Scout does for the movement. See, the Scout move is conferred, but not the Scout rule.
But what I'm saying is, if Scout gives you the Outflank Assault rule, right? That's what it does, right? What does this do differently? Like, am I missing something? Like, what does Outflank do? So a unit made up of entirely models with the special rule may perform the flanking assault.
So here's the thing, though.
As described on page 3.
They wouldn't be a unit made up of models entirely with that rule, because your say Praetor that you put in there wouldn't necessarily have it.
It lets your HQs
in there.
But
if they're on bikes.
Yeah. It lets you do it with HQs.
But Scout, okay, I got it. Okay.
No, okay.
Yeah, got it. I know what's going on.
Yes,
so I was going to say
Scout characters do not gain the Scout rule, but they can move with the Scouting unit. But they can't outflank because they don't have the outflank rule.
Because they don't have scout.
Correct.
So they can move with the scouting unit, but because they don't have scout, they can't outflank.
Keep in mind, for this game,
now I'm understanding.
when you say unit means essentially a data sheet. A leader is not the same unit as the bike unit. So when it says the unit, he doesn't have it. They do. So it does make a distinction.
He could still move with them.
The way
it's just
it seems,
that he doesn't get
but he would definitely not have the
outflank.
outflank. Moving with them, I believe that's correct as well. But he wouldn't have the outflank. So that's what it confers to.
Okay.
And again, there might be some other units that this can work on as well.
Now, let me see, by the way, this might be all moot. If you give the Legion console a bike, does that confer scout?
Bikes don't give you that.
Negative.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, no.
That's why I was going to check real quick, because if that's okay, that would have been hilarious. I would have laughed.
Doesn't matter. It's not a real thing.
What's the point?
Yeah, I'm not thrilled with this one. It's fine if you're running these types of units. I don't run these types of units, and I think the base one. I said, if you want to run dreadnoughts, you take this. If you don't really care, I'd probably take the other one, especially because it gives you some options with land speeders. All right, we have one left to go. The Serpent's Bane, and Steve, this one is yours.
All right. So the Serpent's Bane limitations. All units that are troops must be fire-wing. That's not a shock. And just to quickly recap, firing means you are going to get a +1 to wound when attacking units with attached independent characters. Okay, that's cool. You're going to have at least one unit. Usually you get that against. It's nice. Not the best, but it's nice. Let's see. At the end of the battle, the opposing player scores 3 victory points for each priority target unit that has at least one model on the battlefield that is neither pinned nor falling back.
Yes, if they're still alive and they're not pinned or falling back, your opponent gains points.
And finally, shocking, your warlord is either Firing or Lionel Johnson. Nothing world-shattering in the limitations, except giving up 3 victory points per priority target that's not dead.
Okay, this better be a good.
So, what do we get for that gamble?
Shit.
Legion Seeker squads become troops.
Okay,
I'm with it. Seekers are cool. They're very pricey for their durability, but they're pretty damn cool. Okay. At the start of the battle, controlling player must select 3 enemy Primarch, HQ, Elites, or Lords of War, and declare them.
Yeah, those are the priority targets.
I wonder what you do when they don't. Yeah.
Read the whole thing.
Okay.
We'll discuss it once you're done. Read the whole thing.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you don't have 3.
Yep. All models in a unit from this attachment that has at least one model firing and have +1 to all hit rolls made against the priority targets or any unit they've joined. If they do not include at least 3 Primarch, HQ, Elites, or Lords of War, then any other units may be nominated.
Yeah, go through the rest of it because it makes more sense when we talk about it.
Models with both character and firing unit type get +1 attack when locked with enemy priority targets, and up to 3 units selected as troops using this Rite of War that have firing may be given the Infiltrate special rule.
Ooh, okay. Oh, I see something spicy. Okay, I see spicy. I
see 9 victory points that I could fail to achieve simply because my opponent has played cat and mouse with them.
So I see the opposite, because it doesn't have to be 3 Seekers that gain Infiltrate, because I think they already have Infiltrate.
No. I'm looking at the 9 victory points I'm giving up. Forget the Infiltrate. Forget it. It's useless for now. It does not contribute to getting the 9 points.
But I think it's not that hard to get them if you're taking. That sucks. Never mind. It's not even D3.
Yeah,
it's
you're starting
3.
at a -9 to start the game.
Jesus Christ!
You need to kill the 3 units, and the ones that they're making you pick choice-wise tend to be. It's the targets that make sense for Firewing to go after, but they're the heavier things. And depending on your opponent's makeup, if he happens to take a Primarch, a Lord of War, and then I don't know, one other HQ, those have to be your choice. You know, no elites. Those are your choices. If you can't kill the Lord of War, you're screwed.
Here's the real fucked question.
Yeah.
Here's the real fucked question. What happens with the Dreadnought Talon?
No.
Well, you have an HQ.
No. What happens with the Dreadnought Talon? What happens?
Then
you have 3 Dreadnoughts chosen as one slot.
One slot.
I would say yes.
God. Yeah, I think you'd have to kill
and
all
at the beginning it says enemy choices, not... See, it's then interchangeably saying choices and units. And those are different things for Dreadnoughts. Do you have to kill all 3 Dreadnoughts to deny the 3 victory points?
Okay, what is the exact...
Or does each Dreadnought count?
What's the exact wording on Talon?
Yeah, now I'm looking it up right. Yep. Is it under special rules? Probably under special rules.
Yes, under special rules.
Oh, no, that's Talons of the Legion. Whoops. You would think
the rule is Dreadnought Talon. Damn.
Is it really Dreadnought? Okay, so it's under D. I got it. Give me a second. Hello? Dreadnought Talon. When deployed onto the battlefield, either at the start of the battle or when arriving from reserve, all models with the special rule in a unit must be placed with unit coherency, but afterwards operate independently and are not treated as a unit. So now we have to go back and read this. At the start of the battle. For fuck's sake. Okay, so then when deployed onto the battlefield. So yeah, no. So no, they're not. You don't have to kill all 3. Because Dreadnought Talon is when you deploy them, and
okay. And now, what if I hold them in reserves? What if I put them in reserves and walk them on the board? What happens?
It's technically a deployment. Holding them in reserves is technically you're just not placing them.
So at the start of the battle, it's 1 unit, and then you deploy it, and then it's 3
they're
units.
Deployed. Oh, no, because they're deployed on the battlefield. I'd say if you reserve them, that's technically a deployment. I understand
which happens after the start of the battle.
Oh my God!
You see the issue I have.
So here's what I would say.
That's a factor enough.
To me, this Rite of War is already potentially giving up so much. I would absolutely say either way, it's you'd have to choose one of them. Let's say, because you're in reserves, but you deploy like a unit. You're not technically a unit. I would say one. I want them to FAQ this one way or the other and tell us for sure. But because of all the negatives, I would not make you have to kill 3 Dreadnoughts to make sure that you don't get 3. They don't get 3 bonus points. This one's already tough enough.
Yeah, I agree.
Depending on what your opponent has, because the bonuses are not bad. The things you get, Firewing is useful if they have independent characters in the units. If they don't, some of these choices wouldn't. You won't get the +2 wounds. The +1 to hit against your priority targets or that they're in, useful. Your characters that are also Firewing get +1 attack when they're with the priority target, useful. But I don't think it's so nuts that I'm then going to require you to kill 3 Contemptors for essentially saving a point each, or don't kill all 3, I get a full 3. Like, no, that's too much. If it is that way, then you better hope you can not choose the Contemptors. You have to hope they have enough of other choices, because never take that way. That's so bad. Yeah.
It's really bad.
It's also poor rules writing.
I'm shocked by this. Look, you can hear my shocked voice right now. Oh no.
Yeah. I want to like this one more than it is, and it's obvious by the way they've weighted the points. They see this one as exceptionally strong, because it's not even you pick a certain amount of priorities. Okay, and they give up points if you don't get them by good choice. No, you have to take 3. And it's essentially forcing you to put most of your army into Firewing, because if you only have a few units, you're not getting much of a bonus. And then if you can't kill those units with those priority targets, you're not going to get anything out of it.
Okay. On the off chance. Okay, here we go.
There's positives here. There's absolutely positives.
If you're playing if you're playing a game of Zone Mortalis, which is technically sometimes smaller, that's better because you have a higher chance of killing those.
I would almost say in Zone Mortalis you have a better chance of them hiding from you, because it's harder to move around.
Yup. lots of line of sight blocking, and if they're a piece of shit and they run dreadnoughts and you can't kill the dreadnoughts because you brought bolters.
I would say Zormataus is actually worse. You only get the bonuses if something in your unit or the unit itself is Fire Wing. Therefore, you're going to want to take a lot of Fire Wing. And, okay, it helps you versus your priority targets, which would probably be all their independent characters, most likely, if they have them. But it's not going to help you then against the other units. And even when it helps me against those targets, the +1 to hit is useful. Absolutely very useful. The +1 to wound, I find, though, doesn't help me as much because a lot of time my Firewing units, or the units I think to put Firewing on, the ones that want to hunt the independent characters naturally, it usually end up being the units that have high strength. So I don't really need a +1 to wound. I usually almost want something else. Or units that are forced to do it. If you want to take the, was it Egamatus Firewing? I always forget those guys' names.
Yeah, the Enigmatus Firewing Cabal from the
if you're taking those guys, well, partially I'm saying that because I just painted up 2 squads of them, but I don't have a lot of other fast attack choices. So if you have some of those guys, they can really take you far. Or depending on what your opponent builds, if your opponent doesn't have the exceptionally tough choices, or if they only have enough where you get a choice otherwise, like let's say they don't have a Primarch, a couple HQs and an elite choice, you could probably swing that. But I just don't like the fact that I'm going to be starting off so down in points. And
you just have to take a shit ton of sniper rifles with Nemesis bolters is what it comes down to. Legion recon squads are support, but they are line. They can take Nemesis bolters for 10 points a model, and they'll be hitting on 2s against those priority targets. And they pick out who they hit every time because it's a sniper weapon. So then just hoping you roll all those 5 up rending hits.
So there's a play that could work.
That's the way to do it.
Yeah, if you can choose just the HQs, you can get bonuses in both directions. Because you'll also be +1 to wound, so it won't help with the rending, but at least you're getting more guarantees through on both ends. And you've allocated the saves, so just make them roll them. I said, or the Egamatus Cabal, okay, they can come in from an outflank, and they will target the unit that has the character that was staying closer to the back or something like that. Because those guys can get, like 6, actually in this, they can get like 5 attacks and stuff like that. They can do tons and tons of damage, potentially. I guess I personally am not as thrilled with Firewing. No,
I'm still a no for me.
I feel like this is one of those ones where they ended up playing certain types of armies in testing, and they balanced it based on how they were playing games, and said, my basic Legion Tartaros squad got shredded, man. Like, that's so strong. It's got to be 3 points for 3 points.
I agree,
and
I think this is one of those things, and it's very, you could kind of see it, especially in the Mechanicum book. You can see sometimes, like, the what's the word I'm looking for? The different playtesting groups' experiences with different things is the nicest way to put that. Yeah, it's just, I don't know.
I could have seen it still work if it was the 3 priority targets and it's point for each. That I would even feel fine with. The 3 points for each, I've telegraphed to you what I care about killing. And depending on if I don't tailor my army exceedingly well to do Serpent's Bane, I'm going to guarantee you quite a few points. I think, you have to bring stuff with Nemesis Bolters. Because if you have the character in the squad, I was going to go and do a bunch of damage to you. Maybe I'll keep these guys back a little bit more. Maybe I'll put my character somewhere else kind of thing.
Hey, hold on. Okay. Can I take
an
ally with this?
Yes, this could also be your ally if you want to risk giving up. If you want to risk giving up 9 victory points,
no,
because of your allied detachment.
Take Mechanicum,
and then bring some Thanatars and just be a bad person, dropping strength 8 blast 4 times a turn.
A Thanatar singular with Paragon of Metal. And now you have 3 shots at Strength 10, AP 1, Precision Strike 4 up.
Yeah, something like that
Maybe?
could work, assuming people have Thanatars. No, I know.
Exactly.
Well, that's
But listen, I'm
we
just
could
trying
stick,
at this
we
point.
could
I'm
stick.
grasping at straws.
Yeah, assuming people don't have
That's true as
friends
well.
nor want to make friendships, they could absolutely do
Listen,
that.
if you're taking this at this point, like I would allow you to do
No,
anything.
it's honest. It's
because
not
it's like this is
overly
such
that
a
bad. The problem is
Oof.
if you're not geared correctly to take them down, or if they're cagey enough with what they do, you're giving them a lot of points. I wouldn't call it bad, because the bonuses you get are very useful, but there's that huge detriment hanging above your head. And if you can't claw out of that hole, your opponent, if you can't kill all 3 units, giving you +3. If this was an okay game, not like a blowout one or the other, I probably just gave you the game. And if I only kill one of those 3s, you've won. I can't imagine you're coming back from giving up +6 points. In general, unless you were getting blown out the whole time. But if it's a game, quote unquote, still a game at that point, you lost. Not a chance you're going to win.
Yeah, I would say that Thanatar with Paragon of Metal would be my go-to.
Sure, but I think most people don't have those sorts of models. I think it's a fair assessment that most people don't have a lot of Mechanicum.
That's literally just me grasping at like how to make this work for those listeners out there. But like, if you really like this and you like the idea of sniping HQs, and I mean that's a way you can do it.
But that's also assuming it's the HQ. Like, it depends on what they bring. If they bring one HQ and then a Lord of War, now you're having to actually take down Lord of War as well. I mean, there's a lot of variability in play. And at least for the moment, maybe another year plus in this game, I'll look at it differently. But at least for the moment, I mostly try to look at the game close to the plastic line with a little plus to it. Because that's what your average player is going to have. The player who has 3 armies, including a full Forge World Mechanicum army, they've made up their mind about this stuff long before.
Would be able to, has more access. Oh no, I understand. Yeah, and I could see like other things that might work that someone else might not have. But even I'll tell you right now, even a Thanatar with Paragon of Metal is such a stretch. Like, just to give you, give me a second. So you would need the Magos, which is 130, and then the Thanatar with Paragon of Metal is 290.
1 unit,
and you need troops. Yeah. So 135. Yeah, so 135, 290, and let's say a bare bones Magos, 75. 75 if you want stupid bare bones.
That's like 500 or 600 points.
Yeah. And that's bare bones. I didn't even put anything on the Magos.
But
nothing.
Listen, I've always looked at our discussions to be closer to main lines and what people would have in plastic or could get reasonable in plastic. Like, okay, guys with Nemesis bolters, that makes sense because there's scout squads out there. You could get, put a little iron or copper tube at the end of a bolter. There you go. Now you have Nemesis bolters.
I got it.
What do you got?
I got it. You take a big old heavy support squad with multi-meltas and firewing.
Okay.
And they're running around in a Rhino looking for either the HQ squad or their Lord of War unit, right?
Okay.
And they hop out, and because it's +1 to hit, there's snapshots that happen on 5s. And multi-meltas are twin linked. So you'll have a 55% hit rate with multi-meltas that you're just zipping around the table with. So if you hit, you'll kill them.
Is there any way to confer scout or infiltrate to a support squad from a
So
hero?
they just said so not the heavy, but troops choices that have fire wing are given infiltrate. If you're doing that, I think you need to do that in this as well, and you're giving it to some of your you're doing it with a Meltagun squad. Or even Dark Angels have plasma repeaters. It's a 3-shot strength 6 AP4 breaching 4-up twin linked 12-inch plasma gun, essentially. Even a squad of it's more expensive, but even those guys, if you can get them close because they're only 12-inch gun, you can lay down a lot of fire with that. I think you need to utilize every trick they give you.
I can see that working, actually. That one I could see working.
I wouldn't use that just because the strength 6 means you're hitting contemptors on 5s to wound. And
but it's good shots.
But here's the thing: I can always guarantee most armies for Astartes are going to have at least one contemptor in the elite slot because the box set has it, and contemptors are amazing. So most people are going to go, oh, well, I don't want to bring a Contemptor. Like, you have to objectively want to not field a Contemptor to not field a Contemptor.
What I will say is there's a chance you
So
don't
you have to be
have
able to
to
take one
put it
out.
in with those things. But if you do, okay, my squad with a weapon like that is just not targeting your Contemptor. I got to go somewhere else. I got to try to play keep away. But that's all you can ever do with some stuff. It's okay. So quick sort of closing thought on the Rites of War. The Rites of War are very interesting. They have seemingly useful upsides. They tend not to have tons of restrictions. They're little restriction light compared to some of the others we've seen. But multiple of them give victory points if essentially I'm not winning the game well enough. They're almost win or lose harder sort of points. I think if you're a Dark Angels player, if you want to use one of these, have a good reason. Otherwise, the base ones fit nicely, or just no Rite of War. Often Rites of War, you kind of have to aim your army to fit to an extent. I think with theirs, the way they have it, you kind of have to aim a little bit more. You're taking the Unbroken Vow if you really want it over Pride of the Legion for a particular reason. You're taking Serpent's Bane if you really want it over just about anything else for a very particular reason. You have something very special your army wants to do, and you better hope you have a way to execute it. Because remember, you're not playing the game against yourself. Your opponent they're going to know what your Rite of War is because you're going to tell them or they'll be aware of it. They know your plan. They can try to counteract that. Any other quick closing thoughts, gentlemen, on these? And Dan, don't just say they're okay. If you're going to say something, you got to commit.
No, that's not what I was going to say. I was going to say, no. I'm going to be honest here. If you're going to be fluffy and take them, fine. But otherwise, I almost feel like they almost feel bad. Like if you take them, it's an uphill battle. And it sucks because the funny part is, so like the advanced reaction, meh, right? It's good, but it's meh. Because Sphere 2 is great, but it's meh. The Rites of War are, I think, even lower tier than that. They're less than meh and more of like, you're almost like hampering yourself to take it. But then you look at the units, and the units are so goddamn good. So it's like, I would just take normal Rites of War, or nothing, and play it like that. Because it's like, God, I really want to try to find something I like about these.
If you don't like them, that's okay.
No,
I think it's fluffy.
No, because I am a positive person, so I try to like even with like the Mechanicum Thanatar, I'm like, okay, it'll work under this very specific circumstance, right? But
no,
I don't
it's
like
never a good
stretching that far. You know what I mean?
You get into thought arguments where then your opponent, like you can be standing talking about, well, yeah, but if you're doing that, then I have this other thing. Like it becomes a useless discussion because both sides can talk about under very special conditions why something is a good or bad idea and doesn't get you very far.
Exactly.
Any final thoughts, Steve?
And
I think it's incredibly fluffy because these are like proto Rites of War, right? The Dark Angels were the template for the Legions. So they tested everything. And, this is what the Dark Angels came up with. And then everyone else said, okay, that's cool, but what if I did it better? So in that sense, it's amazingly fluffy. Sorry, that may have come across a little bit rough. These are not, as a whole, they're alternates, not improvements. Usually they're slight downgrades.
Fair. Compared to when you look at base Rites of War, there's definitely arguments to be made for some of these under certain conditions. When you look at some other armies, they tend to have they all have much less Rites of War. They usually have 2. But what they do, that's true. Yes, some of them only have 1.
Sometimes
so
1.
They have much less options, but their options fit their army exceptionally well. Dark Angels are hampered by an extent of that their army is all armies. So they need Rites of War that fit a variety of armies, which means you get some that just don't feel quite as good or feel like you said, their play testing they win against really leaned heavy in a certain way, and that skewed a perspective.
So it's very weird because it's almost like someone did the units, right? made them super powerful, because they are. It's like they are really good units. And then they looked at the Rites of War and said, oh shit, this coupled with a very powerful unit is going to blow the balance level. But yeah, whatever.
All right. I think that does it for us this evening for Dark Angel.